Okay, well, why don't we get started? I'm Carrie Slavens again, and we are here with the It's Good to Produce Goods panel. Welcome back, everybody. Does anybody want to open up with a question? Yes, hi.
Hi, I'm John Tidbury. I'm a councillor with the District of Port Hardy, and I enjoyed your the panel at the beginning there. But my question is, where do I go from here? You know, and as far as council members go.
Okay. In terms of well, maybe Ross, do you want to take that? From
yeah, Ross seems to be right up on this.
Well, good morning, Councillor Tidbury. I trust all is beautiful up in Port Hardy this morning.
It is, for sure.
Nice.
Little rainy. We got a little problem with Okino. We're evacuating them right now.
Oh no.
Oh goodness.
Well, I'll see if I can provide a brighter note. So I will limit my my comments, I suppose, to what I know best, and leave the other aspects, perhaps, that you're wanting to have addressed to others. But you know, one of the problems I have found with many communities that I've had involvement with is that there's a dichotomy that exists between what they say they want and what they're actually set up to achieve. And the most common occurrence is found within the zoning bylaws. Frequently, the zoning bylaws that are intended to complement economic diversification and resiliency and so forth end up limiting a company's ability to innovate, to adjust their business model because of inherent limitations to things like site coverage or height maximums or a specific defined list of permitted uses. And so I think when our communities are looking at greater economic resilience, certainly kind of the circular economy is a refreshing new reality that is becoming more and more relevant. But we also have to have the ability to accommodate that reality. And so municipalities that recognize that adjusting their zoning bylaw to a much more flexible structure that is getting away from a focus on a list of permitted uses and instead defining a list of impacts it wants to regulate, number one. And number two, instead of trying to address specific physical aspects of a zone, a commercial or industrial zone, like setbacks or what have you, deal with performance criteria. What is it that you want these uses to achieve with regard to shadow, with regard to screening and so forth? That allows each business then to adjust its business model relative to kind of these performance related criteria. So in a nutshell, that's where I think many municipalities can start focusing.
Okay, that's a really good start. Jacomien, do you have any suggestions from your experience in Trail?
What we started with, John, is we realized we need to find out what makes us different and what strengths and what weaknesses we have. And a company like Shorthouse at Delphi will be able to assist you with that. And then we started with a sustainability plan after that. So this is what we have, this is what we don't have, this is where we want to be, and how are we going to get there? So we got a company like Delphi in, and they looked at all of that and they told us, you can do this and this and this makes you different, and that's what we've been working on.
Okay, great. So Paul, from Delphi, working with communities who are interested in moving forward with some of these initiatives and ideas, what's your advice?
I mean, I think Jacomien made a good comment there in terms of just understanding the landscape. You know, I think many communities may or may not have the capacity to have their own economic development agencies, or if they do, you know, it's usually done off the side, you know, or if they don't, for example, it's done off the side of their desk with smaller teams, or in some cases it's a joint regional initiative like happens in the South Island Prosperity Project, or with Metal Tech Alley and the Lower Columbia Initiatives Corp. So yeah, understanding kind of the baseline, but also looking big picture in terms of what are the key trends and where are things heading, so that you can develop that positioning that's unique. And to Ross's point from earlier in the panel about really understanding, you know, the strengths that you bring and how to differentiate based on those, will be critical. So Trail, for example, without access to ports as easily, we'll have to, you know, consider its place. And I think, you know, they've been looking at that real innovation community, working with the local university, local college, Selkirk College, and with the Kootenay Association of Science and Technology, and sort of local incubators to generate new business synergies and opportunities, both with the innovation community and then the larger anchor tenant like Tech Resources in the region. And so building on some of those clusters can also help to, or developing some of those clusters and building that ecosystem can help to attract new interest in the region and build from that.
Okay, very interesting. Does anybody else have a question they'd like to put forward to our panelists?
I just want to invite John to come when the pandemic is over. You're welcome to come for a visit, and I'll show you around what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that goes for everybody on the call.
That's great.
Thank you very much. I may just do that.
Great.
It's very cool what's happening there, and just you know, there's probably a few champions that are really driving some of the, you know, the fabrication lab that's there, and some of the very cool technologies that are interfacing with traditional industry.
It's wonderful to hear. And I'm wondering, do we know any other of the towns, you know, resource-based towns throughout the province that are moving in the same direction as Trail?
Good question.
Yeah.
Jacomien, have you been exposed to other communities that have looked at your model and said, we want to do something slightly different, but similar?
Yeah, we have the Fraser Valley Economic Alliance. We have a meeting with them in November because they want to see what we are doing, how we are doing that. We've had a conversation with Richmond as well. What does make us different in that is we are different communities working together. We're not just one community that's trying to do something. We're 7 different communities that came together and formed a corporation, and we are working towards all of them. We also have interest now in our neighboring towns that wants to form part of the Metal Tech Alley brand. So we have that. And then we also have a very good public-private partnership going on here, which is also not something you always get. So, and that's some of the stuff that we've learned, especially from the province, which they appreciate with what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just touch on as well, Prince George, for example, in sort of the tall wood, engineered wood products, you know, have really sort of built on a strength there with Canfor and others as key partners in the UNBC's Wood Design Center. And they've got projects that they're showcasing. They've got sort of testing facilities for engineered wood product, and they're exporting a lot of that material for buildings across North America. Yeah, there's sort of clusters of ecosystems that are growing up in different communities.
Okay, we have a question that's been sent in here. This person says, sounds like Ross is advocating for form-based zoning instead of permitted use zoning. How do we get municipalities to adopt the idea? Is that what you're doing, Ross?
Well, thanks, Dave, for that. That's exactly the thread. Although I would not advocate a pure form-based zoning code, because there can be difficulties with respect to how to enforce certain aspects of performance. So yeah, I've been advocating for some time the value of creating a hybrid that allows us to dovetail with the limitations of our Local Government Act when it comes to enforcement, etc., as well as provide the greatest latitude to support innovation and undertaking of business generally. So how do you do that? Well, it's a bit of a gray area, and because it's gray, it freaks people out. But I think the discussion has to start with an informed discussion around what is that sweet spot that can apply on the island with regard to a balance between performance and prescriptive criteria, something that you can enforce, but something at the same time that gives the greatest latitude possible. I would suggest that perhaps an organization like this would be the ideal advocate or facilitator for a discussion that local governments can participate in with regard to how to unpack that issue and then how to translate it into the local circumstances that they want to apply it to. And of course, that would have to involve discussion with community planners, but lawyers as well, municipal lawyers, to be able to input the perspective of case law to bookend the discussion. But I think it's a very important point, and I thank Dave for raising it.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions? Please just give a shout out or raise your hand. Many of you have your, Laurel, hi, go ahead.
Hi.
Well, I think we're getting some feedback. Is there somebody else in your office?
Sorry, yes. Mine is more just a general comment, and I think that all of the things that you've shared on this panel are absolutely fascinating, and I would love, I just actually looked on the attendee list, and I know there's a couple of my city managers here and our economic development team is here, which is really great to see, because I think these are the kinds of conversations that will help entrepreneurs bring ideas forward in a way that you're just giving us more of a background of how the entire system can work and where some of the gaps are, and in kind of idea development and trying to figure out how to, just how to bring ideas forward as a proposal to investors, or how to bring things forward to the municipality or the regional district. These are all very tangible little tidbits that I can go and research further and bring ideas forward. So it's more just a thank you for having this panel and just for the diversity of opinions that you're bringing forward. And I've emailed a couple of you just on the side, because I have lots of ideas that this is really helping to just invigorate ideas. So thank you.
That's great. And you can visit Trail when COVID is over.
Very cool. Where are you based, Laurel?
I'm in Campbell River.
Oh, Campbell River. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I actually wanted to weigh in with a question here. I was listening to a CBC program yesterday where they talked about how forests are valued. The value of the actual, the value of the forest is beyond the timber, and looking at, the other things that grow in forests and produce, such as, foraged things and whatnot. And I wondered if any of you, maybe Paul, want to weigh in on that when we're looking at the circular economy and that. Has that come into your thinking at all?
I'm sure there's many on this call right now that could speak to the value of a diverse and healthy forest ecosystem. So, I mean, maybe just a couple initial thoughts, because I do have a biology background, although I focus more in marine biology. That appreciation for ecosystem regeneration and, healthy, well-managed forests, and getting the value out of those forests, not just the wood, but the different products and, the materials that can be used for a wide range of things, everything from biopharmaceuticals, as I mentioned earlier, to feedstocks for compostable packaging or other areas, is something that we probably could do a better job of really understanding, and what those mean for local communities, whether they're Indigenous communities or smaller remote or rural communities that could look at new economic development opportunities in harmony with their local forest ecosystem. So biorefineries and that. I know that the province recently put out an RFP trying to understand what are the biorefinery opportunities going beyond just forest product use to smaller communities across the province. So that will probably reveal some insights in terms of how to maximize the value, but it comes back to better forest management at the end of the day.
Okay, great. Do we have other questions?
I can add to that, Carrie.
Oh, thank you.
We have forestry industry here as well. And what they're trying to do at this point is to have to use everything that they get, and then they have a sustainable plan of planting new trees, which they do. But we have two lines from that, which I think is important. The one is we have a brand new renewable gas plant coming up that's going to use some of the wood products. And then the other one is we have a company here that's extracting ligament from wood to make the ligament for 3D printing.
Oh, wow.
So that the ligament is not a plastic, but it's made from wood, so it's biodegradable at the end of the day. So there's lots of options in the wood industry as well. We just have to go and search for it.
Okay, that's awesome to know. Any other questions? No?
I was hoping for more questions.
Yeah, well, go ahead, John. Are there areas, well, let me ask the panelists then in the meantime. I mean, we've had a very short time to talk about some very complex topics. Are there things that projects you would like to talk about or ideas that you would like us to explore at this roundtable? Any of our panelists? Notes for discussion that you would like feedback on?
I mean, I'd love to hear from anyone that's in the group here about the circular economy concept, whether it's something new and for some, and whether they're seeing, new business opportunities in this space within their own communities that they're looking to explore, just out of curiosity.
Can anybody weigh in on that?
I don't want to take over here, but
No, please.
Because we have the industry here that we have that's refining metals and metallurgy, they have byproducts that comes out of the process. At this point, they have 28 byproducts that comes out of the process. So the business opportunity that we have here is you can take some of that byproducts, further refine it, and then you can do something with it. So indium, germanium, all of that gets further refined here in town, and then it gets sent out of town to Canada as well as overseas for cell phone screens and for solar panels, X-ray machines at the airports. So in that instance, and that also keeps that circle going. So it's not a waste anymore. Suddenly you can do something with it. So that's the type of business opportunities that we have here that will eventually lead to closing that loop in the circular economy.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Can I ask a question, Jacomien? What are the challenges you're finding with those, with the ecosystem that you have in the trail region and that industrial symbiosis? Is there a challenge with scale? A lot of byproduct and not enough market demand for it. How are you kind of linking up those people outside of your communities that might want some of the byproduct?
At this point, I think our biggest challenge is knowledge, because people don't really know exactly what we have here and what you can do with it. And then you need a certain type of person to be able to do that. So you need the person with the chemistry degree to be able to extract it and to further refine it and then be able to sell it. So you need the chemical expert, plus you need the business person to run it as a business. I think we do have the same problem as we have anywhere else, in that we need skilled workers here. We need people with a certain level of education in a certain field in order to do that. At this point, what we're doing is we're working with the MyTax program, getting some students to set up business cases for these byproducts so that we can show people what we have, what you can do with it, and what you need to get there. So it's because it's specialized, it's not just anybody that can do it. You need a specific person with a specific knowledge to do that. So that's, I would say, our biggest challenge for this.
And so in terms of that, is the training available? I mean, how are our educational institutions responding to that need?
As Paul mentioned earlier, we have a very good relationship with Selkirk College here, as well as a UBCO in Kelowna. So we work closely with them in getting students out here that have the knowledge and that can help us with that. But at the end of the day, you want somebody to come and establish a business here that can do that. And that's not necessarily your student, because they have student debt when they're done with, and they don't necessarily have the capital to start a new business. And that is some of the barriers that we need to overcome.
Ross, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if I could, perhaps I can back up this discussion just to make this comment, and I'll take this opportunity to sell this idea to a broader audience that I've been quietly trying to peddle, and that's the notion of a Vancouver Island-based plan, sustainability plan, and I'll just briefly tell you what that is. So many areas have regional growth strategies, which are all well and good, but I would advocate for something much bigger than a regional growth strategy that applies to Vancouver Island as a whole, based on the pillars of sustainability. And the reason I say this is because there are great ideas that people can take away back to their own communities. The trouble is, so many communities are so small that they lack the workforce, they lack the expertise, they lack the execution, quite frankly. So these ideas, people go back with, excited, motivated, and then eventually nosedive. And you know, nosedive after nosedive after nosedive becomes a bit demoralized. So what's the common denominator here? The common denominator, in my opinion, is a coordinating entity that looks at the region, the Vancouver Island region as a whole, and works with all of the communities to figure out how to leverage the inherent assets of the community, develop those. So let's say Port Hardy wants to develop a certain area of expertise or commercial enterprise. It may have no ability to inform that. But if there's a resource that can be brought from elsewhere on the island to support Port Hardy, it can achieve that, more likely achieve that outcome that it's seeking. The other piece too is that many communities are competing with each other for the same workforce, for the same businesses, for the same investments, and pirating that is not good for communities. So the missing piece in my mind is an overarching coordinating entity that, much like an orchestra conductor, makes all of the individual instruments for our musicians play in harmony so that Vancouver Island is maximized. Whether you're a small, relatively remote First Nations community, or you're somewhere in the Saanich area, or anything in between. Just a few thoughts.
Okay, that's great.
I have
I'm just going to take one question from somebody who's been waiting, then I'll go to you next. So the question is, and I think we're getting pieces of this answer already, how can we as individuals advocate for our city to encourage goods production in communities? What are some grassroots ideas and suggestions for our communities to move forward? You okay, perfect. Yes. Oh,
You're on mute.
Yep.
microphone.
sorry. So this kind of ties into both comment regarding Ross's comments as well as sort of grassroots, what we can do. So one of the interesting things that the city of Campbell River is doing is they have partnered with, or we have partnered with the Campbell River Area Angel Group and have launched our second Next Stream Tech competition. And so this may sound like a competition that is focused only on technology, computers, that sort of stuff, but it's really tying into innovating for all of coastal BC communities. So it's an international competition where people can submit ideas to be able to solve problems in food security, health and wellness, emergency preparedness, as well as sustainable resource management. And with that, they can put in an expression of interest, and then they can work on solving these problems and building up these connections to create more of a circular economy, as well as a sustainable economy here on the island. For example, last year, one of the winners was from Quadra, and he was doing some of what one of the panelists was speaking about, where he was taking waste byproduct from salmon and fish manufacturing and turning that into, versus waste going into high-end fish sauces. And then, so that is using that waste and taking it out of that chain, but also increasing food security as well as innovating. And then another one was Portable Electric was based out of Vancouver, which isn't necessarily Vancouver Island, but they were innovating to create generators that could work off grid. So with solar and wind energy. Now we've got a company here in Campbell River who is negotiating those contracts to be able to use that, that technology in their remote operations. So when we talk about grassroots initiatives, anybody who has those ideas, and if anybody here has those ideas of how to use, you know, the byproducts from the mill and trail to be able to create solar panels that we could use here, that is all part of it. And Campbell River is helping with those, and with the angel investors and the mentorship, be able to make those connections and make it happen. So yes, I completely agree. Being able to work together and not in a silo and not competing is going to benefit every single community. And Next Stream is a really great way to do that. The expression of interest closes on October 31st. So if you have a great idea coming out of this, put in an expression of interest, and hopefully we can work with you to build up Vancouver Island.
Okay, I think that's fabulous. Thank you for that. And can I just ask your name, and are you with the city of Campbell River?
Yes, my name is Leah Knutson. I'm the economic development analyst, so I work with Rose Kluklis.
Wonderful.
And we're on and off with, because we've got some major financial planning and stuff going on, but we are around.
Okay, that is awesome. We have about 3 minutes left. Do we have other questions? Yes. Go ahead, Laurel.
My suggestion is in response to Ross's idea around the connectivity around the island. So obviously VIEA is a great conduit for that idea, and I'm part of the World Leisure Organization, and within that they have special interest groups. So any member of the organization is then part of a smaller idea group that shares information back and forth, and then when the World Leisure Organization sends out a newsletter, each of those special interest groups reports back on things that they've been specifically talking about. And so something like that might really work for VIEA, in which anybody who's a member of VIEA can sign up, and then there's, you know, kind of cohorts of conversations happening, and then maybe quarterly or something that it would come back to the group, and then those ideas can get shared, so that, you know, like similar to what Island Good was. Like I was actually on the program committee when we started the idea of Island Good, and it's so amazing to see where it's at now. So I think that this is the perfect potential avenue for that to translate into this continued idea generation that goes beyond what's just happening at the summit and within these awesome roundtables and panels.
I think that's great. And I've noticed Paul and Lisa have both posted some links in chat. So if you're interested in finding more about the circular economy or next stream, please visit there. We are coming to the end of our roundtable. Thank you everyone for sharing. This has been absolutely fascinating and a very positive thing, I think, for our island and our entire province. Thanks to all of our panelists and our sponsor Inland. And I wish you all a happy conference. And I look forward to seeing you at the next panel.
It's a shame the panels are too short.
Ah, yes.
Thanks for your input, John.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure.